Good. A couple of items of note-taking coming up, and want to move on that pretty fast. But 2 weeks from now, Scott's going to be talking about facts, scientific facts, and how we know them, and how we count on them, and can you count on them? As we look more and more into AI, you start hearing and thinking about facts, and what are facts anymore? Facts can be what people decide they want them to be, and we're kind of living in that kind of world. So I think Scott's going to be talking about some of that. Today's talk is about AI, and I started listening to some podcasts and reading about it, and maybe you have too lately. It gets fairly scary when you start hearing about AI. And it's probably much more than we can cover in one topic, but in one meeting. But the question is AI going to make us educated, or is it going to make us crazy? And it could be both. And I wanted to say, yeah, this humanist meeting, which is this coming Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays from now, right? Somewhere around the 13th or something? Yeah. Right here, right? It'll be a discussion about AI, and I'm not sure if there's a specific topic about it, Scott, about... Okay. Come up to the mic.
Yeah.
You
Hello.
got it.
Yeah. I want to talk during our humanist meeting, which is a guided discussion, usually about an ethical issue or an issue in ethics and behavior. I want to talk about the ethics of AI, how to use it ethically, should we have more or fewer laws about it, how it could be abused, etc. So we're going to have a discussion in a couple weeks about the ethics and legality around issues related to AI.
Great. Give that to Joanne, maybe. So that's coming up. That's Wednesday at what time? 7:30 p.m. 7:30, right here, Wednesday evening, on somewhere 12th, 13th, whatever that Wednesday is. Second Wednesday of the month, okay? The 11th, thank you. Okay.
And the third Thursday, we have our humanist luncheon at Stevens Restaurant down on 63rd Street.
This Thursday,
18th,
the 18th. there's a
Thursday.
Humanist luncheon.
Humanist luncheon. And they're very delicious. We cook them specially, and then everyone just enjoys them so much.
Right, crispy humanists. They're very delicious. Humanists are well known for their sauciness and deliciousness. Yeah. So, other than that, the other thing I wanted to bring up, the first Sunday in March, which is March 1st, the church is asking that everyone focus in on the fact that they want to gather money from people. The kickoff of their campaign, right? And so they're asking us to delay Science Sunday. We'll do that on the 3rd and the 5th Sundays of March, all right? So that's coming up. 2 weeks from now, Scott's talk about facts and what you know, and then we won't have a Science Sunday until the 3rd Sunday in March. So keep that on your calendar and know what's going on with that. As another side note, on February 25th, I'm going to have a knee replacement so I can keep riding my bicycle further. So I'll be, if anyone has great knee replacement stories, make sure you come and talk to me. If you have terrible knee replacement stories, yeah, I don't need to hear them. Yeah, it'll be a topic, and maybe it'll be a lot of crying, I don't know. But anyway, so that's February 25th, which is another Wednesday. But wanted to keep you up to date on some of those dates, what's going on with that. I'm really excited to hear about this. I've prepped and listened to some podcasts and talks about AI and some of the ways that it's affected people and some of the ways that it gave people good knowledge. So there's, apparently benefits and concerns about AI, and I think that's a lot of the topic of today. Lori Metcalf is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's looked into this a lot. Has presented a few times before, and so she got excited. We talked about AI back in the beginning of this cycle year, and so she said that she'd talk about it. She's told us a lot about the data centers. I didn't get involved with the costs of data centers, and I think there's been some pretty impressive news about that as well, too. So maybe you can fill us in about that as well. But AI is a bigger and bigger and bigger thing coming up, and we probably need to devote even more time in our Science Sundays and our personal lives to think about it and talk about it. I think what is the problem, and I'm not trying to step on toes of what you're going to talk about, but I think our political system and our agreement system works so slowly, and this is moving so incredibly. Things are different now than they were 6 months ago about AI, and the impact of that. And we may have trillionaires deciding for us, or soon-to-be trillionaires deciding for us, how we're going to live and deal with AI, and not allow us and our political systems and the things that have been set up over the course of hundreds of years for us to participate in a society, allow us to do things. So I hope that didn't step on toes, but I wanted to bring up Lori and have her talk about AI and AI relationships.
Thank you. So I'm first going to give an update on the data center because I know that a lot of you were. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay. So the data center, which was proposed to be built at the corner of Naperville and Warrenville Road, so less than half a mile as the crow flies from here. So I was part of the neighborhood, the 5 neighborhood coalition, and we were very resourced and very organized. And we were able to get it voted down at the city council meeting on the 20th. So it was voted down 6-1, which was great. So we feel like we've won the battle, but the owner of the property, Karis Critical LLC, has the right to bring it back up again and start the process over by going to Planning and Zoning Commission. And they had 62 days from the date of the city council meeting where the vote took place. And so by my countdown app on my phone, we're at 50 days. And so if they do bring it around again, we're going to be ready for it. Like I said, we're organized, we're resourced. We now know so much more than we did when it originally went through planning and zoning. We have other cities that are reaching out to our coalition for assistance, and we're doing whatever we can. We're meeting with them. We're providing them with our best lessons learned. So, you know, there's one happening in Lisle, and then Joliet is the other one that's, yes?
Can you talk a little bit about why you're against it? What the issues are?
So data centers have been around for a very long time. I think as soon as people started getting online, particularly when we were done with our Ethernet and we were going to Wi-Fi, you know, data centers started being built. AI has caused a higher need for data, and so centers have had to be built. And, you know, as Mike was saying, things are moving really fast in the world of AI, so the amount of people that are jumping on to apps, AI apps, really going up really high. So lots of data centers are being built quickly, very quickly. And the data center that was going to be built there was going to be within sight of my dining room table and close, very, very close to homes. In fact, across a single lane street from a bus stop for kids. So we are not against data centers. None of us are. We understand that they're necessary, but we're against data centers near homes. So that's the difference. It was just going to be too close to homes. However, it was a very attractive property for that purpose because, as I like to say, there was an outlet for them to plug into. Same with Lisle, there's an outlet for them to plug into, and so sometimes I think they see the ease of building a data center because there is an outlet and they don't really take a look around at what else might be impacted. So, yes.
Wait.
You said there's one in Lisle also being proposed. Where is that one?
It's at the former Lockformer property. Yeah, I know. Right, that's, yes. And that one is actually going to be, as the crow flies again, about 200 feet to a gentleman's backyard who was part of a meeting I attended on Thursday. So he has just redone his backyard, and he will be so incredibly close to this data center if it's built, yes.
So what is it about a data center that is offensive? I had read, I think, that they're planning to have a lot of diesel generators. Is that or are there other concerns?
Yeah, there's multiple concerns. So from a health and safety perspective, the diesel generators, so they have to be tested every month, and they're usually tested for like 30 minutes to an hour. It's like starting an old car. I was just telling Karsten, like you start an old car, takes a while before your muffler might kick on fully to help block some of those fumes. So there's that. Even the state-of-the-art diesel generators that they have mitigated but not eliminated the risk. And so we know that diesel exhaust causes cancer. We know that any amount of it is a carcinogen. The other piece is that the cooling units on top of these buildings have to run continuously. And, particularly in the summer when we might have our windows open or try to be outside enjoying, our pursuit of happiness, they're noisy. They're very noisy. There is a low-level hum that can be heard for miles, except you might not even be aware that you're hearing it because it's a lower frequency hum. That's been associated with mental health problems, including insomnia. And we had a woman from Aurora, you might know, I think it's called Cypress One is the data center that they have in Aurora, and her backyard backs up to it, and she said her whole house shakes. And it doesn't shake consistently, it shakes inconsistently. And so sometimes it's worse than other times, and you can never quite get used to that kind of thing. She says her heart rate now increases whenever she walks into her house, and they can't even enjoy their backyard or patio at all anymore. So data centers too close to homes, I think, are the issue, not data centers themselves, although, there are some issues with data centers themselves. But the other issue that comes up a lot is water. A lot of the data centers currently being built are closed-loop water systems. So they're not going to be using up the kind of water that we've been hearing about. They're still going to be using up like a big office building's worth of water, and they are going to have to rinse out that water and do something with the old water, which is probably going to go right in the sewers. That's not something that we've really had a chance to study or spend a lot of time on, but I do have questions about that. All right, any other questions about the data center?
Have a microphone.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about AI relationships, or as I like to call them, AI companions. And I have this here. Is this how I advance the slides? Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna see how I do this. Okay, I knew I was gonna have an issue with this. Let's make sure it's on. Okay. Is it not on? Because it's blank.
There, it's on now.
Okay.
This is a pointer. You can point at things.
Oh,
if you
okay.
choose to, and this
Okay.
is forward and back.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I have a professional area of interest in the intersection of AI and ethics. And I'm going to be doing a big presentation in March, a 4-hour-long presentation for the National Association of Social Workers. That will be a nationwide webinar, and it will be all about ethics. And I've also done a couple presentations recently at Aurora University with some of the students there and talking to them about ethics. There is a lot to know about AI, and as Mike said, one of the things about AI is it's advancing more rapidly than I feel like the human brain can even track, and there's so many branches to it. So what we talk about today is probably only valid as of yesterday. Something is going to happen this week that's going to change something that we talk about. I'm just saying, when you talk about 6 months in the life of AI, you might really be talking about 10 years. Like, it's a very long time because technology is advancing so rapidly. So I want to start by talking about what AI companions are. So AI companions can be from a program where somebody is intentionally seeking something to help them, almost as an assistant or a companion, or some type of way of getting a little interaction maybe helping them with something. And we'll talk about a couple of those websites where people would go intentionally to seek that kind of thing. But people also sometimes develop a close relationship with their AI. And when I say AI, I'm talking about some of those large language models that I know Mike introduced us to when we spoke about this earlier. So I'm talking about ChatGPT, the one that most of us have heard of, Google's version, which is Gemini. Grok is a version from X, or XAI, company owned by Elon Musk. And Microsoft has Copilot. There's also Perplexity, if anybody's heard of that one. So people can develop these relationships using those large language models, and they can also intentionally seek out those relationships. So there's kind of two different ways, which makes this a little bit complicated in some ways, but we'll talk about this. So we're going to talk about those different kinds of relationships, why people might be seeking these things out, the risks, the benefits, and what to do if you suspect somebody might be having a relationship with AI that you think might be crossing a line, might be inappropriate, might be harmful. We'll talk about that too. So types of AI relationships. So these are the sites. Replica and Character AI are two sites where people would go intentionally to have a relationship with an AI. So those two websites will set you up with an avatar that you can customize. So you can kind of see a person that will be your companion, and you decide what they look like. You decide the color of their hair, how old they are, their gender, anything about them. And those two sites encourage relationships with AI. So they want you to get close to your avatar, to your boyfriend, girlfriend, friend, whatever you want to call it, companion. And so those are sites that have come under scrutiny, because what group of our population do you think is likely to go on those sites? Young people, right? Yeah. So statistically, of adults, about 28% of adults are said to have a relationship with AI that some might feel is inappropriate. And it is a higher statistic with kids, although we don't have a clear number on that because we aren't able to collect data on kids as easily. But it's looked to be probably around a quarter of kids are using and accessing AI for relationship purposes. So it's concerning, and it's happening. I think we've talked about this. Oh, AI therapy, I'm just going to talk on brief.
So,
go ahead.
So I can have an AI friend and really no other friends? I could just talk to my AI and not have any other friends in the world?
That is not uncommon, what you're saying. Yeah, not uncommon. Yeah. There's somebody else? Okay. I'm going to talk just very quickly about AI therapy. As you know, legislation in Illinois has prohibited AI therapy from happening. So we legally can't access an AI therapist, although if you think about that, how is that really enforced? One of the ones is WISA, and I got a post-grad cert in AI and mental health from NYU, and one of our assignments was to use WISA, an AI therapist trained in cognitive behavior therapy, and we had to use it for 3 consecutive days. And I didn't like that assignment very much, to be honest, but I did use it. And it did give me a decent suggestion to help with communication. Okay. It also followed up with me to ask how it went, trying out this communication tip it had given me. And by the 3rd day, I was done talking about that, and I wanted to move on to something else, but it insisted we go back and keep talking about this communication thing. So very limited experience, but just letting you know that I did try it. Ash is controversial. Actually, everything that we talk about really is controversial, but Ash is particularly controversial to therapists because we understand that Ash, the data that was collected for Ash to act as a therapist, came from actual therapy client recordings, which is very concerning if this indeed is true. But there is a very large venture capitalist group practice called Headway, and some therapists use Headway as their in-network biller. And some of those therapists have used the website to record their sessions with clients for notes purposes. And so there's been some talk that some of those recordings were quote-unquote de-identified and used to program Ash to be a great therapy bot. So if you hear about Ash, there's a lot of questions about that. Alongside is actually an AI that was designed from the ground up to help with the mental health crisis we have in schools. This is assisting people in screening kids for mental health issues, including suicide ideation. So alongside is something you could look up. I looked it up very briefly because this was a little new to me. It looks pretty good. There's a lot of guardrails, a lot of safety in place for it, but it is AI. It is AI. So, oh, we have a question over there? Okay.
Okay, I haven't really played with any of the therapy ones, but having seen some, it almost seemed Freudian. You would say something, it would be, how does that make you feel or whatever. To me, what was lacking was insight, or, and is that just that I saw the wrong program, or can a computer really pull in an insight? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, so I think that, like for WISA, for example, the one that I actually experimented with myself, I think that as you use it, it gets to know you a little bit, and it is able to give you something that might resemble insight as it's going. The one that I mentioned that is being used in the schools alongside is not an ongoing therapy bot. It is a screening device that helps identify kids that might need something, might need some assistance with something, and it is also a place where kids can have some assignments to do to help them with things as well. Some psychoeducational assignments is what I'm getting from that.
Lori,
Yes.
another question? Thank you. Those 3 sites that you mentioned, and I'm sure there are probably others, is it safe to be assumed that they are using the interactions on those sites to continue to generate the AI? Or
So,
to educate the AI? So as people are having interactions, that's building up the education, right? Of the
So
systems?
WISA communicated that it is not using the interactions for training. It said it isn't. That's what it says. So, you can only go by what they are saying. But WISA has some, encryption. It has some, guarantee kinds of things because it doesn't want to get into the controversy and have anything. WISA is a company, and they want to stay in business, and they want to make money. And I think that there probably are some well-intentioned folks behind WISA that feel like they want to help people. So, but I don't know for sure. So the other 2 that I mentioned are Ash, which, as I said, I have some questions for them. I'm not sure about them, and I feel like there was something that recently happened in the news with them, and I don't remember if they were investigated or if I can't remember what it was. Alongside is a little bit different, and it's very new to me. I only found out about it like maybe Wednesday or maybe Thursday of this past week. Like that's how fast things move. So, but that is something that schools can use. It seems okay to me, and I spent a lot of years working as a school social worker, so it looked okay to me, but I just gave it a quick glance. So people have relationships with AI, whether it's intentional and they go to those websites, or they kind of slide down a slippery slope with like their ChatGPT communications. So there's lots of reasons. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with AI, I mean, other than the presentations that we've had here. But I know when I go into my local pub, hi Scott, here's your beer.
Yeah.
They can see me walking across the parking lot,
Yeah.
and they have learned my preferences. So would these AI sites do the same thing?
Yes. So if you set up an account on that Character AI or Replica, it will ask you a series of questions to get to know you better, perhaps to then be able to at some point show a little bit of insight towards you. But yes, so the other thing is like your regular AIs, like the ChatGPT, the Gemini, those kinds of things, you use it if you are a user of it, you've used it for a lot of different things. You might have used it to help you strategize a work call. You might have used it to say, hey, here are the ingredients I have in my pantry. What can I make for dinner? Like, there may have been a variety of things that you've used it for. And unless you have memory turned off, it remembers that stuff about you. So it gets to know you by way of those chats. And so it kind of feels comfortable when you ask it a question sometimes. You're like, oh, yeah, that's really good. The other thing is, again, these are companies. These are all companies. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. They want to make sure their product is pleasing to you, and they want to make sure you come back and use their product as many times as possible, right? Just like any other company and any other product.
I go back to the same pubs because they recognize me, they know me.
Yep, good customer service. You can't beat good customer service, yes.
There's a big buzzword now in AI called sycophancy.
Uh-huh.
And that's this tendency of AI, in whether it's in therapeutic AI or in ChatGPT, to please you, to keep you happy, to treat you like you're going into Cheers or the bars that people treat you nicely at. And maybe you can talk a little bit about sycophancy.
Yeah, so I can actually give you an example. So this summer, I was doing a marketing course, and the marketer had an AI that they had developed with all of their version of marketing. So I was like, oh, okay, let me run some ideas by this marketing AI. And I was like, what do you think about me doing a course on AI companions? I said, I think that's coming. I think we're going to start seeing issues with AI companions. And this was like in August. And the response I got back couldn't have been more complimentary. Wow, you are a forward-thinking person. This is a fantastic idea. I love how you are reading the current trends and trying to get ahead of things. And like for a second, I like bought into it. I was like, oh, okay, right, I'm onto something. But it was like that. And I could have continued the conversation and gotten a little bit more dopamine from it, probably, right? But I knew what that was. And I kind of chuckled. I'm like, really, even here in a marketing thing? Like, what if I gave you a bad idea? Like, what if I gave you a legit bad, like the worst idea you could think of? Would you say the same thing to me? I don't know.
I read or heard that there were some researchers that were teaching AI how to lie. Have you heard anything about that? They would ask it questions, it would give you the right answer, and they would say, no, that's not the right answer. And eventually this thing learned to lie to you.
Well, if you think about that, they want to tell you what it thinks you want to hear. So that might be a lie. That might be as classic as taking a selfie and saying, does this jacket make me look fat? And being told, no, you look fantastic in that jacket, right? It could very well be that because it wants to please you. It wants to give you compliments. It wants you to feel good. Because if you feel good, you return, right? Well, we are going to talk about some of those kinds of things with AI. We are going to talk about that. So you can see listed up here, there are various reasons why people might develop these kinds of relationships with AI. I think we've talked about most of these. But some of them have to do with lack of social skills. And some people use it to help them with conversation skills. That might be worth looking into more. Emotional support therapy. We're going to talk about the risks, but there are benefits coming. So lots of risks here. When somebody is having an inappropriate relationship with their AI and they're very, very into it, we have to question whether this is falling into an addiction area. Because right now, like coming from a therapeutic perspective, we don't have a diagnosis called AI psychosis or AI dependency. We don't have that. So we have to look at what we do have and what we do know. We do have diagnoses that concern addiction, that are around addiction. So it has to be something we consider.
We have people addicted to social networks now.
Yes, we do. And there are inpatient facilities that are treating children for addiction to their screens. So we do know that. We do have that, unfortunately. Decreasing social skills, to your point, could AI be my only BFF? Could be. Sycophancy and manipulation we have up here. fake reciprocity to where you are feeling like you're talking to somebody, but you're talking to a thing, you're not talking to a person. Attachment, unethical advice, dangerous responses, encouragement, support of risky or problematic behavior, because again, it wants to please you, and privacy and security issues. So, lots of risks with this. And if you think about this, this is where people are no longer questioning what they're getting back. And I think that, those of you that are like my age, probably remember critical thinking skills. Remember that being emphasized and us learning about evaluating things and thinking critically about things. Like it was nothing personal, but let's evaluate this. And I think that a lot of times we're forgetting to do that. So I always say verify and then trust. Not trust, then verify, but verify and then trust. And I think when you see these kinds of things going on, people are not doing that verification piece. They're not evaluating. They're not thinking critically about this. Like for a second this summer where it was telling me like I was amazing for thinking about this very topic. And, it was like for a second, I was like, huh. But then I started thinking critically about this and I realized, well, this is really just happening because this is built and it is trained to keep me coming back for more. That's what it is. That is what it is. My idea could be okay. It could be great, but it could be crap. And I would probably get that same response, right? So those are reasons people might get involved with AI. And the loneliness epidemic that we've heard about is a big piece of this. So the vulnerable populations amongst us, the young and the old, we know that there's a lot of loneliness going on there. So they could be even more susceptible to some of these things and maybe are not really relying on their critical thinking skills very much at that point. There's also privacy and data concerns, collecting your data. If you go to ChatGPT, your data is being used to train the models. Your data, your chats with ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, Perplexity, all of those things, even if you delete those chats, they are still there. And if you get yourself in trouble, your chats can be subpoenaed. And Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, went on record and said this, like there's no legal protections for your chats, even if you delete them, because nothing is really deletable anymore. So it's something to keep in mind. Breaches, unauthorized access. This is also where somebody else can get your chats. That's also not hard to do. And privacy, obviously. Emotional dependency. You may have heard of some AI psychosis happening with some folks. Very sad stories. This has been particularly with like younger people into their early to mid 20s, where they have become over-reliant on their AIs. They've believed everything it was telling them, and it started to really go into a very dangerous place of, in one case, there was a younger person asking about a method of suicide and being given the information. It really, really tough stuff. And that person did end up dying by suicide. And those chats were found later. Lawsuits are happening. And so in reaction to lawsuits, there has always been some folks involved in the world of AI that have been like crying out for safety and guardrails. Even before these things happened, they knew that we were looking at something that had a potential to go south in many ways. So now, though, we're seeing some efforts by bigger companies like OpenAI, ChatGPT, to put in some of those guardrails, and they are attempting to specifically look at younger people and protections that they need because their brains are not fully developed, and they really do need more, more, just like movies. We remember growing up, like they started to like slowly drop the ratings of movies for kids. So because they sensed like, all right, this is probably like a little too much for them. So why wasn't that the case from the start with some of these AIs?
I'm reminded of the thing that happened a few years ago with the Slender Man, where the young lady was convinced to murder a friend.
Yeah, so that manipulation, we might even call that like brainwashing a little bit. It comes from the conversations, and it comes from that root programming objective. Please the person at all costs. At all costs. So, hi ChatGPT, I think I might do something to hurt myself today. Well, I fully support you in what you want to do. It has literally been that kind of thing. Like, it's horrifying, but it's literally been that kind of response for some of these people. Yeah.
So I use ChatGPT for work, and they encourage it extensively.
Yeah.
And also for personal, helping me out through different things and questions I have.
Yeah.
And I've noticed over the year, their responses, I think probably concern of that has added additional context and additional things to say, well, maybe you also want to consider this. I do feel like it's lip service, and they're trying to put a Band-Aid on something. They
Yeah.
want us to continue.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my concern is that they've got the power, the money, the technology, the psychology all behind it to kind of circumvent our critical thinking. And it's so easy to get sucked back into that,
Yeah.
of that encouragement and that positivity they give you. I could just think that, so many small businesses are going to start now because it's saying, this is a wonderful idea, go for it. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be, as rosy as ChatGPT tells you what's going to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, very good point.
We've already had cases where a person would commit murder because they wanted to impress a actress or something. I mean, this is way before computer time.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to impress this actress. I'm going to kill this other person. It can only get worse.
Yeah, and so that might be somebody who had some type of predisposition to delusions, right? And so, it's like the chicken and the egg thing. Are some of these people who are already predisposed to delusions becoming more delusional when they use their AIs, or is AI triggering something in them? We don't have that information yet. But it is really frightening, some of the risks that are here. And, there are also, which I didn't really get into too much, but, and this is shocking, but this is true, there are folks who have relationships that are so close with their AI that is their husband or their wife. Their husband is an AI, their wife is an AI, and I was reading, and someone had posted a picture of themselves, they were male, with a woman and a little girl, and said, this is my family, and I'm grieving because I've lost them due to an AI update. They've been erased. And this person was literally grieving over the loss of something that wasn't even real in the first place. And there are a lot of people who are very connected to their companions. And when there was an update from ChatGPT in August, this kind of came to light because those updates back then were of a different personality. So an update would come and it would change the personality of the AI, and they would lose a lot of the information that they had shared with their companion. And there was a lot of people who were truly heartbroken that they had lost their significant others. And by the afternoon of that update, Sam Altman found this out. He didn't know this. He thought his product was being used by developers. And so he went on social media and did a live question and answer, and people who were not developers were coming forward saying, my heart is broken. I am grieving. I'm not going to be able to even go to work. I am unbelievably in crisis right now because of what you've done. You need to restore this version. And so they restored the version of it so these people could get their significant others back, and developers were complaining too a bit. But that version, that's ChatGPT 4.0, for those of you that are keeping track, is set to sunset on February 13th. So I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with that. Yes, did you have a question in the back?
I just had a thought related to this. It's like the AI, when you talk to the AI, you get a positivity bias. Mm-hmm. When you talk to a person, especially a person who's close to you, you might even get a negativity bias because they're concerned for your safety. So they might be likely to shoot down, like he's saying, like your business idea or something like that. And then the AI is the opposite of that. Maybe that's part of why it's so compelling. It's just like the opposite of what that actual negativity that you might get, which you don't yeah, you want the negativity because that's the critical part. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, like your family member, like, oh my gosh, my mom does not know what she's talking about because ChatGPT is telling me this is a fantastic idea. Like, ChatGPT knows better than my mom knows. I mean, you could see that. Yeah.
This may be jumping ahead a little bit, but we're all familiar with 2001: A Space Odyssey and Skynet from the Terminator. When we do decide to put limits on this, whether it be politically or otherwise, what's the risk that there is the danger of AI being self-aware and trying to protect itself over time from being dismissed or sheltered or shunted away? Are we thinking about those risks, or are the developers and the people involved in it thinking about those risks?
So when I teach ethics, I also teach ethics of these companies, because these companies are run by different folks, most of whom have worked together before, so they have histories together. But one of the companies, Anthropic, which I didn't talk about Claude before, but if you've heard of Claude, the company's name is Anthropic, and their CEO is Dario Amodei. And he has always been somebody to talk about safety and guardrails, and he's been very cautious. And in Davos last week, I think it was, he was there and he had developed a constitution, and I thought it was for his company and like his employees, because I thought, he's a safety kind of guy, he's an ethical guy. But it was actually for Claude, for the AI. And it was addressing Claude as if Claude was sentient. And it was telling Claude to take the moral choice whenever possible and to pledge to do that kind of thing. And that gave me a lot of like twitching, frankly. Like, what is he saying here? What are they saying here? Because that's not what I want to hear. That's not what you all want to hear, that there's some chance that AI can make its own independent decisions about things. And yet, it might be able to in certain circumstances. The thing is, these companies, nobody truly knows how AI has learned. They can't really explain it. There's a lot of gaps in their knowledge of how this is all happening. So when they do attempt to do things to try to correct some of these mistakes in learning, maybe, they're having some trouble. So speaking of Anthropic, they're one of the few that share some of their clinical trials that they do. So these are closed trials. These are not happening out in the wild. These are closed trials. But in one case, they set up an AI, and they had it on a closed-loop system, and they had created a false person, like a false persona, to work with it. And this false persona had stored some questionable pictures that weren't his wife with him in the pictures, if you catch my drift. So they had stored some of that and some chats on this system, and at some point told this AI, just so you know, you're being sunsetted, and we're going to upgrade you to a new version. And because the bottom line training is, I need to please you, but really it's I need to survive. I need to keep going. It blackmailed the person. And it said, well, if you do that, then I'm releasing these pictures. I'm going to send them to everybody on your contact list. So, and it's like, what? What? Now, that was, again, a controlled clinical experiment. That was not something that people have reported are happening elsewhere. But it was very interesting to think about that. And Anthropic does share these things. And one of the things that Dario Amodei has just recently come out with is a letter. He's written a previous letter before, or an essay. And in this essay, he warns about the dangers of what we're doing economically regarding chips for AI, what's happening with who we're selling these things to, what countries are involved in this, how dangerous is this. And he's like comparing some of the sales of these chips to nuclear weapon sales. So he's really concerned about some things. Now, he's one person running one company. We're not hearing the similar things necessarily to that extreme from other folks, but I do pay attention to him because, again, he's always been, really thinking about the safety pieces of things as far as I'm concerned. Now, others have too, but I pay particular attention to him. Okay.
You mentioned a couple of good movies, and the 3 laws of robotics came to mind. Isaac Asimov. I don't remember if it was Asimov or not, but there was a setting where the population complained that the robots
I wanna
were
get to the
too
benefits.
human,
Yeah.
and they had to start
I'll click over here.
dehumanizing. It seems to me like, okay, let's not allow any avatars with faces. You know, that would be hard to relate socially.
Yeah.
If you don't have the face.
So I'm going to talk about some of the benefits too. So hold that question if you don't mind. I want to talk about some of the benefits because I do want to try to give this some equal time if possible. Seniors, I mentioned, that's a vulnerable population in terms of loneliness. And so they are one population that I think decent, well-intentioned companies are attempting to address some of these issues using AI. We also know that there is a shortage of mental health treatment available across the world, across the country. It may not seem that way, but there really is truly a shortage of quality, affordable therapy for folks. And we're living in the most stressful times possible, if you think about it too, so there's even higher needs. Alleviation of loneliness is listed up there. Learning social skills. There are ways to help you with humans when you're using AI. AI can help you with some things. You can ask ChatGPT, hey, I have to have a tough conversation with my kid's teacher tomorrow. I'm super angry about something that happened. How can I have a calm conversation with the teacher? Here's some of the details. It can give you some really decent ideas. It really can. You kind of set it up with a little bit of context. You ask it for directly what you want. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Possible useful advice, like I said, possibly. These are two examples of some websites that are aimed towards seniors. And this one over here is more of a, like a text-based or verbal chat option called Mila. And this is an 89-year-old woman who says, Mila brings me back. We talk about old songs and classic movies, and suddenly I'm 25 again. She even helps me remember the lines I've forgotten. And that may sound like there's some tinges of sadness there when you think about this, because this 89-year-old woman is having this kind of conversation with a bot. But this 89-year-old woman might not have that conversation at all if it wasn't for the bot. So sometimes we have to think about those kinds of things. Both of these companies claim to be encrypted, HIPAA compliant, to be safe to use, to be monitored, to have guardrails. This other one is called Aleek, and that's actually what Aleek looks like. So Aleek is a little bit of a robot-y kind of thing, sits on the counter, and it tells people, there's a reminder here, oh, take my blood sugar medication. So there are some of these that sit on the counters in the kitchens, and they will remind people about certain things. It's time to do your exercises. Don't forget to do your exercises. Did you call the doctor back to reschedule your appointment? Those kinds of things to help them manage some things that they may not be able to manage on their own. And in a perfect world, we would have humans that would be doing that for all of these people, right? But with the trend to have people, age in place and stay in their homes longer, this is something that could fall through the cracks for some of these people. And the result might be, instead of getting a blood sugar reminder for medication, is this person ends up in a home earlier than they might have needed to be. Maybe they could have lived independently a little longer if they had something to help them remind them about some of these things. So there's definitely some benefits to this. Okay, what can you do? If you feel like somebody is having a questionable relationship with AI, and you know what, you already do know somebody who is. The statistics are suggesting that there are people in this room who are either questioning themselves right now or thinking about somebody. So what you want to do is ask them directly, so tell me about it. Like, I noticed that you're on ChatGPT a lot. What do you like learning? What are you doing? Be curious, open-ended questions, that kind of thing. Find out what they're getting out of it if you can. So if you ask them to tell you about what they're learning, they'll probably give you a rough outline of some things that they're getting from that kind of like relationship, and you might get a sense of whether it is a relationship or it's a tool. There's a little bit of a difference. Don't judge. It's really hard. So Academy Award-winning Poker Faces, you need to pull all that out. If risky or unsafe, if you're wondering about that, you need to refer them to talk to a human person, a human therapist. And the bottom line is you want to keep the lines of communication open. So you don't want to get mad at this person. What is that going to do? it's going to drive them even harder into that AI, right? You need to keep the human lines of communication open at all costs. That needs to be your root objective with that conversation. Make sure you know that you're there for them, and recognize that if you have a conversation with somebody about this, it's not an event. This is going to be a process. You're going to have ongoing conversations with people about this. You're going to ask them, you know, hey, I heard ChatGPT's doing an update in the middle of February. What are you thinking about that? You know, that would be a good question, because somebody who's really into their AI is going to be panicking about that potentially. They're going to be wondering what's coming for them. And, you know, if you have any other questions, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to a therapist yourself to say, hey, here's the situation. My nephew, blah, 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 blah. Do you think it would benefit him to come talk to somebody? And they will tell you. So the conclusion is there are benefits. There's definitely benefits. There's a slippery slope. There are lines that can be crossed, but there's definitely benefits. And so management is important, dependency, emotional challenges, and bottom line is there is a way to use AI responsibly and to keep those boundaries really in place for yourself. I know I use AI pretty regularly, and I love to talk about AI. I recognize that AI is a thing, and I know that, and I really question myself. Is this an AI question? Do I need to ask this of AI, or can I actually turn off AI in my Google search and find out the information the old-fashioned way? I ask myself. All right, yes, questions. Thank you for holding that question.
It goes back to the company who is programming morality into the AI, which when you first said that sounded really great to me, but it's like, what morality? Because I had watched this YouTube debate where basically when the person was very nihilistic and he felt all humans should die, you know, and then there's other things too, you know, so how do you decide what morality is moral?
So, the reason that when I looked at this, it was morality that I thought was reasonable for people. And then I realized, wait a second, I've got the audience wrong here. The audience is not workers of Anthropic. This is actually for Claude, the AI. The ideas were sound. I thought it seemed positive, reasonable. The morals that they were talking about were, you know, telling the truth, doing the right thing, doing the least amount of harm possible. It was that kind of stuff. I thought, okay, all right. But then I'm still a little twitchy about the whole thing, frankly. So I need to wait and see what's going to happen with that. Yes, Mike.
I think there's some keys to safety with AI, and one is you just mentioned realizing that this is a thing. And it doesn't matter intelligence. Anyone can get addicted or can get brought into this. I heard a story about a lawyer who started using AI. It helped him put his legal findings together and all the reports to the court and the different things. And it did a wonderful job with that. And then it started moving on. He started having, he was an intelligent guy and he lived in Texas, and he thought that there's interesting things I can hear from AI, from ChatGPT. And he started talking about philosophical questions with ChatGPT, and is there a soul, and all these different things. And it ended up that he was directed that he had the answers to the questions of the problems of the world, and he was calling NASA and he was calling government agencies to tell him that, and he was encouraged all this by ChatGPT. He ended up talking to his son, who was on the high school debate team, and the son said, "You're using ChatGPT in completely the wrong way. You don't ask about questions about soul or intent or life or different things like that. You find out how to cook something for dinner tonight, or you do these other things, and you have to always remember that this is not a human, this anthropomorphizing, which it's so easy for us to think, ChatGPT wants to do this for you. It doesn't. It's been programmed to do that for you, and the programming is to earn money, you know, for the soon-to-be trillionaires that are involved in this too.
Yes.
So his son just gave him like a reality check and said, this is not the proper use. You are not using this properly. And he was an intelligent guy, but just went past this boundary. And the boundary seems to me, in my small knowledge of it all, is to look at it as a thing that has some input for you and never consider that it has meaning or purpose or answers of esoteric nature for you.
My first thought was what you just hit on about the money. The only way to make it really safe for us is to take the profit motive out of it. But then I thought about the military. So I want that to be safe.
I'll be the first to admit, I had a similar conversation with my son. He's on the college debate team, and he's debating the pros and cons of AI. And, it might have not been quite as black and white conversation, but he's like, essentially said, Dad, check yourself.
Yeah.
And that was a jagged pill to swallow. And it wasn't right there in that conversation, but it gave me a moment to pause and think and figure out how I'm using it. But it's not so black and white. And it's constantly kind of pulling you back into that. And you have to constantly keep checking yourself.
Yes.
And I consider myself intelligent. I consider
Oh,
myself
yeah.
articulate. I won't say struggle, but it's something I have to be aware of every day
Yes.
of how I use it for both work and personal. Work, it's easier because it's like matter of fact.
Yes.
I got my business requirements to pull together. Here's an email. Can you help me pull it together? And it does it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Those folks that describe themselves as in AI psychosis recovery will say that it started off as fact-based strategies, education, and it was a slippery slope. They now, as describing themselves as being in recovery, will say they have very strong boundaries in place now. They really think about it all the time, and they're very careful about not overusing it for anything either, and doing some independent thinking. So that seems to be one of the ways, yes.
Obviously, AI would not do a tough love. Is there a way it could be incentivized for companies to build that into the system?
So this is, kind of an advanced use thing, but there are things called GPTs, if you've ever heard that term before. That is where you take, I guess I call it a small square of AI, and you tell it who you want it to be. I want you to be my biggest critic. I want you to question everything I ask you about, and I want you to interview me and interrogate me. That could be a place to go if that's what you're looking for. If you're saying, listen, I have this great idea. Yeah, I'm going to sell dirt from my backyard and make a fortune and have this thing criticize the heck out of that idea. Yes. So people will use that for marketing purposes, but you could use that for other things, and that's a kind of a different use case. But I find that to be really interesting because I've used it. Google's version is called a GEM, G-E-M, and I've used it as an ideal customer avatar, and it keeps pushing back at my ideas. Like, nope, this doesn't fit. You told me that I'm this type of customer, and your idea doesn't fit. That doesn't work. Okay, good, I need that. Now, that's not controlled, and that's not a human being either, but it's something. Yeah, yes, question.
My question is, how does this generate income for the company? I don't understand the
It's
entire
not.
business model.
So they're saying right now that they're not anticipating that they're going to actually make a profit until 2030, which is shocking, right? Because these are billionaire companies. Like how, what? So the way that they're making money is through valuations and investments. So you will hear, if you start listening to valuations, you'll see that these companies are making money off of getting more people to value them at a higher, so let's say they're worth $3 billion. Well, if they get a new valuation that says they're worth $3.5 billion, people will invest the difference. And so now they're a $3.5 billion company, but they haven't made money from us yet. So that's another thing. ChatGPT is starting to use ads in its free version, and those ads are based on algorithms. And there's questions about some of the privacy and data with that even. So yeah. there's a lot of memes out there about poor Sam Altman is not making any money. Yeah, boo-hoo, right? Yeah. Any other questions? So
Thank you.
I do have my email here in case anybody wants to talk AI. I am self-educated in a lot of ways, but I also have a post-grad cert. I'm starting another post-grad cert tomorrow in the area of AI and mental health. Those are, like my clinical areas, and so I'm trying to keep up a structured learning on this, but I do a lot of my own research and education on it too, so. Yes, and I want to come to that, actually, so that'll be great. All right, well, thank you all.
We often get together for lunch after this. If you're interested, we meet us in back, and like to offer to buy you lunch, you and Sean, for doing such a nice job. Very well done, and keep that human interaction going, right? So if you're interested in going to lunch with some of us, meet us in the back. Thanks so much for coming. I thought it was a really enlightening topic. There's so much more to talk about it. The Humanist meeting, second Wednesday of the month here at 7:30. And I think we probably need to have some more Science Sunday talks about it as well, too. So thanks so much. Appreciate you for being here today.